What's the deal, y'all? Shane G back once again with another episode of Politics as Usual. Make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe for all updates on Politics as Usual and for the rest of the channel. You know what I mean? Ethos, we got a lot going. You know what I mean? Bar exam still going every Monday. OTI new episodes dropping Wednesday. So, what I really want to talk to you all about though is just an interesting thing that I've kind of I guess realized um regarding just politics and how people judge people based on their politics. So um it's just an interesting thing because you know, I'm one of those dudes who I grew up around a lot of people, right? Like a lot of different types of people. Um I grew up in the Detroit area, and of course in the city of Detroit is mostly black. Um there were certain points where, you know, Dearborn, Michigan had the highest Middle Eastern population outside of the Middle East. Dearborn, Michigan, it directly touches and borders Detroit. Um, Livonia had the highest per capita white population, um, and it also touches both. I'm not sure if it borders Dearborn. I believe it touches Dearborn, but I know for sure it touches Detroit also. So those are three cities that are like that, but for the most part, in the metro area of Detroit, in your more working class areas, it's going to be pretty mixed. You're going to have a lot of Middle Eastern people. You're going to have a lot of black people. You're going to have a lot of white people. When you get further away from the more working class areas, and you start getting into like the upper middle class areas. Once you get to those areas, it starts getting predominantly white. So I say all that to say I grew up in one of the more working class / middle class areas, not really upper middle class, more so working class, middle class, right? Um, Nice area though, not really a lot of crime or nothing like that, right? So, but I'm bringing all of that up to say that I grew up in a very diverse environment where, you know, there was different religions, a lot of different languages being spoken, things like that. So I'm bringing all of that up because I do think that that shaped my and a lot of people around me's politics. Meaning, we were naturally a lot more just inclusive about, you know, anyone who was different than us. So in high school, for example, I had one of my classmates came out of the closet to me. This is back in the AOL Instant Messenger days. So, you know, the guy, we'll call him Mike for the sake of this, but we were in the marching band together, and I was on the drum line and he played woodwinds. And one day he hits me up on AOL Instant Messenger and he's like, "Hey, you know, I got something to tell you, but it's got to stay between us. You know what I mean? I trust you or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool." I kind of knew what was coming already because everybody kind of knew this about this kid before he ever said it. You know what I'm saying? We kind of just knew, like. So then when he finally, you know, said something to me and was like, basically I'm gay. I was like, "Yeah, I know. What did you have to tell me?" Like, I kind of played it like that. I was like, "Yeah, we knew that already. Like, what did you want to talk about?" And so, you know, I think he was kind of relieved at that because he was like, "Wait, y'all already thought or, you know, knew or, you know, thought at the time technically thought because he had never confirmed it, that I'm gay and y'all don't care?" And I was like, "Nah, like why would we, you know what I'm saying?" Like, and so then he got to breaking down how, like, you know, he was scared to tell his mom because of religious reasons and etc. Right. So this is me at 17 years old, something like that, you know, where this is very much at the height of calling gay people the F word and, you know, just saying, that's gay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just using it all the time, constantly. Like, that was a very common thing, you know, when I was coming up. So I'm not going to act like I wasn't one of those guys who said those things or, use those things as insults or whatever. But I also feel like um I was one of the people who, like, if somebody really was gay, like, I wouldn't, do anything to like try to purposely make them uncomfortable. You get what I'm trying to say? So anyway, I think all of that shaped my politics growing up, and it made me just naturally more inclusive, and it made me naturally more kind of community oriented and want to, help other people when they're struggling and, different things like that. Right. So, and then obviously because 9/11 happened when I was in high school, and, you know, I just saw a lot of racism towards Middle Eastern people. You know what I mean? I felt like they weren't being treated fair. They didn't have nothing to do with whoever flew that plane into the building. Like they've been here and been our neighbors this whole time. Our kid, I played with their kids and, all that kind of stuff. Right. So it's like, I saw the treatment of them change, after that happened. So it's like, it kind of just makes me, it shaped the way I felt, where obviously, more right-wing people were not naturally as inclusive or naturally as willing to overlook stereotypes or, things like that, right? This was very much in the era where, like, if your son came out as gay, you were disappointed and you were looking at yourself like, what did I do wrong as a father and all of that kind of stuff. Like, this was that era. So a lot of, conservative people were, you could just kind of see the difference between how what I later learned was more like lefty minded people versus more right wing minded people. But I bring that to today in 2023. You know what I mean? This is way past high school. Obviously, this is, I've had a lot of time to learn. And I've also lived in it's a purple state, but it is technically a conservative state in Arizona. I've lived out here for over 10 years at this point. And what I've realized is, while there are extremes of, people who are just diehard Republican, it doesn't matter. Their whole thing is just be the opposite of Democrats. There's plenty of Democrats who, over the last few years, I feel like have shown the same tendency, where they're just like, whatever the Republicans are on, I'm on the opposite side. So if they're anti-war, I'm for war now. You know what I mean? If they're pro-science, I'm anti-science. And vice versa. You know what I mean? And you can apply that in either direction. They're for free speech, I'm against free speech. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're pro censorship, I'm anti censorship now. Again, apply these in either direction, because it's always based on convenience. But I digress from all of that. What I've learned living in Arizona, that's the main point that I wanted to to actually discuss. What I've learned living in Arizona is that you can't judge people based on their politics. Meaning you can't necessarily judge them based on just who they voted for alone. So what I mean by that is, I know a lot of people who voted for Trump. And this is what I've learned, at least in 2023, and people in my age group and younger. And of course, there are exceptions. I'm speaking in majorities. The main reason today that I see millennials and younger, because I'm a millennial, so millennials and younger who are Republicans, it's typically for one of two reasons. It's typically because they bought into the propaganda that the Democrats want to take their guns, and they like having their guns for whatever reasons. You know what I mean? Some for protection, some because they like to hunt. Some, I think, honestly, are just, they just are waiting for something to happen so they can, you know what I'm saying? They wishing somebody will do something. I hope somebody breaks in my house so that I can use force against them. Like, there are those people too. So those are really the three main categories of people that I run across that are Republicans nowadays. These people don't hate gay people. These people aren't racist. Now, what I will say is I do think to be a modern Republican, you do have to look past more rhetorically overt racism or rhetorically overt bigotry. I do think that you have to ignore a lot of, wild takes that Republicans have to vote for them. But I think that's what it is more so. I don't think it's a tacit endorsement of it. I don't think it's necessarily oh yeah, Donald Trump, has said wild things about Mexicans and about Middle Eastern people. I agree with those things, therefore I'm going to vote for him. I think it's more of a, despite the fact that he said those things, I am still going to vote for him because of these other reasons. Would that typically have to do with reason number two, in addition to the gun thing? The economy. Now, again, I'm more of a lefty when it comes to economics. I believe more in a social democracy, with some elements of capitalism that are heavily regulated. Like that's my ideal system. But I do think that there are reasons and there are certain economic philosophies that right wingers or conservatives believe to actually work. Like I think they genuinely believe it. So their main concerns typically are the economy and guns. That is realistically the two things that I've noticed the most about modern day Republicans who are under the age of 40, let's say. Now, over the age of 40, you still get a little bit more of that traditional conservatism where it's like, the religious right, as they call it, where it's like they get a little bit more overt with their, we don't like gay people because they're going to hell and they're leading sinful lives and all that kind of stuff. Like that's more of an older generation conservative thing. As far as conservatives under the age of 40, typically it's two things. It's they like their guns and they like, and they have an idea of how they feel the economy should function, and they feel that Republicans typically would carry that out more. Another thing that just in talking to Republicans over these last 10 years, another thing that I've noticed is they believe in a lot of the same ideas that lefties believe in. They just don't believe, they have zero faith that the government can implement these things successfully. That is what I've noticed. That's what I've noticed, because when I bring up the idea of healthcare, right? Because a lot of conservatives that I know, they'll complain about free market healthcare and like how nothing's affordable. And yeah, I've been in pain for the last week, but I'm not going to go to the doctor because I can't afford it. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of times I'll joke and I'll say, that's why you should believe in socialist healthcare. The number one retort that I get is, yeah, but I don't trust the government to actually implement it like in a way that would be beneficial. Because, and it's hard to argue against that because there's been so much corruption on every level of government and in every facet of our lives. Corruption directly impacts all of it. So it's really hard to convince somebody that the government would be able to implement healthcare for everyone without there being some sort of corruption involved. Now, granted, the healthcare system as it is already the most corrupt thing on the planet. But I think the issue is right now it's more of a, well, at least I know where my money's going. At least that's their feeling. It's like, yeah, I'm paying this money and I know that it's expensive, whatever. But if I give this money to the government, who knows where it's going to go? Like they just have zero faith in the government operating anything really successfully at all. So that's outside of the military. Like they believe a lot of them are anti-war also. Like, let's keep that real. And then the final point I'll make about modern day conservatives who are under the age of 40 is, for the most part, the reasons that they are anti-immigration don't seem to be as bigot based as older generations of conservatives. So older generations of conservatives would be more along the lines of the Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro line of thought of people who aren't from the United States who come over to the United States dirty our country up and make it a place that nobody wants to be because nobody wants these people here. Like, they have that kind of rhetoric. I think that is more of an older way of thinking, though. I don't think modern day, and when I say modern day, again, I mean like under the age of 40. Modern day conservatives don't necessarily look at it from that angle. It's more of a, what are we going to do when all of these people are here? Where are we going to we have enough homeless people as it is that we can't house and we can't find work for, and we can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, help get their lives together. So how are we supposed to help millions of more people who come from whatever country? So again, I think their concerns are not necessarily based in this evil place that, you know, lefties traditionally like to put them in. And although I still disagree with a lot of their takes, you know what I mean? I still do believe that socialized healthcare would be the best way to go, because you have more of an option of getting rid of the healthcare scam. Part is the insurance company in itself, because they have to make profit. So since they have to make profit, they're going to do things that make it so that you don't get the care you need at certain times. If they can figure out a loophole to, well, you didn't tell us about this mole that you had when you were 13, and, you know, we're going to say that that was skin cancer. So since that was a previous condition that you didn't tell us about, we're not going to pay for your care. You know what I mean? They have to do stuff like that to remain profitable. So this is one instance where I do think, because the government doesn't make a profit, you know what I mean? Like, they just collect taxes, and all of the taxes would go towards, you know, the healthcare. So that's just one instance, you know, and the taxes don't even necessarily have to come directly from citizens. Like, they can come from stock trades. You know, you could do a really small tax on Wall Street trades. You could tax corporations, you know, not allow them to, you know, do share offshoring, not allow not pay them subsidies when they're profitable. All of these kind of things. The money's there. And we've seen that over the last few years with this whole Ukraine thing. We know for sure the money's there. So the issue that it seems like modern day conservatives have is they just don't trust the government to actually implement good ideas. They're not saying that the ideas aren't good. They're saying that the government will not implement them correctly. And that's a hard thing to argue against. So, and this is just in conversations that I've been having myself with Republicans, like I said, over the last 10 years. Now, some have been more extreme than others, you know what I mean? Some have still, you know, but these are typically older people, though. Younger people typically are way more progressive when it comes to social issues. You know what I mean? They accept LGBT people. They accept, you know, people of other races. You know what I mean? They embrace themselves in other people's cultures, all of that kind of stuff. And this is pretty much across the board. Like, this is basically how it is. And they really they don't view themselves as racist, and they don't want to be racist. Another funny thing, a family friend of ours who still lives in Detroit, you know, hangs out with my dad and his wife and all of them, right? So this is kind of like a cousin of mine. But last time I was home, I remember talking to her, and we kind of was talking politics a little bit. And she was saying to me how where she lives now, remember how I was describing Detroit, like the closer you are to the city, the more diverse it is, but the further away you get, the more it's basically all white. So she lives pretty far from the city now, so it's pretty much all white where she lives. Just to give you some context, Detroit is the mile roads. The mile roads stop at 8 Mile, and then once you pass 8 Mile, you're in the suburbs. It doesn't matter if you're on the east side or the west side of Woodward. Once you pass 8 Mile, you're in the suburbs. So she lives on like 26 Mile and something. Okay, so that should let you know how far she is from the city now. So, but she was surprised because where she lives, you know, she moved there slightly before the 2016 election, I guess. And, or maybe not that early, but it was around the time that Hillary and Trump were going back and forth. So maybe it was 2016, but she was saying how like a lot of her neighbors have Trump signs and, you know, Trump bumper stickers, and they're diehard Republicans, but they're some of the nicest people that she's ever met. You know what I mean? Doesn't nothing about them appears to be racist or anything. And I was explaining to her, I was like, because they don't think they're racist. And again, they're not even cool with racism. If they saw somebody do something overtly racist in front of them, they would probably say something, or they would probably have a problem with it. Again, I think they're voting for Donald Trump despite the accused racism and things of this nature. And I'm not saying that he's not racist. I mean, him not renting buildings to black people in the late 70s, that lets you know that's like that power version of racism, systemic racism that we talk about a lot. So, you know, it's not to say that he's not. The point is they're looking past that because they feel like he's going to do good things for the economy, or they're looking past that because they think he's going to do, you know, he's going to break up the system and he's going to make it so, you know, just doing the regular, you know, thing isn't going to get it anymore. Like, they wanted something new. They wanted to shake up to the system, and they were willing to take a chance on Donald Trump because of how bad everybody else was. That's the thing I think we need to understand. It's the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, that people don't like anymore. So anything outside of that is going to attract people, even if it comes with some bad side effects. So I think that's what it was with Trump. I think that's more so what you're going to get out of modern day Republicans. Again, older Republicans, they're a little bit more blunt. They're going to still blame, you know, black culture and things like that. And, you know, they'll still bring up crime statistics. Oh, well, black people make up blah, blah, blah % of the prison population. Maybe if you didn't do so much crime, you know, and stupid shit like that without actually looking at that's older Republicans more so. Younger Republicans under the age of 40, for the most part, socially, they're a lot more aware. They're a lot more accepting. They're a lot more, you know, they want to be a part of, you know, the different people's cultures. You know what I mean? They enjoy different types of music. Like, they aren't uncomfortable being in, you know, circles with, you know, black and brown people and things like that. So it's like, we shouldn't, the overall point is that I'm making is this: we shouldn't necessarily judge people based on their label, because at the end of the day, and I've said this on here a lot of times and I'll keep saying it, at the end of the day, you got to go issue by issue. Some people are lefty on healthcare and right wing on guns. Some people are left wing on LGBT and then right wing on immigration. Some people are left wing on the economy, but they're right wing on foreign policy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Now, those two things don't make sense at all. If you're lefty on the economy, you kind of have to be lefty on foreign policy also. But that's, you guys get what I'm trying to say, though, is you have to take things issue by issue. Just blanket assuming that you know everything about a person because they say that they're a Republican, or they say they're a Democrat, or they say they're a conservative, or they say they're a progressive, you know, you can't really take that at face value. You got to take that and then do a deeper dive if you really want to know more about that person. And then odds are, you know, they're a reflection of who they grew up around. You know, most people believe what they're taught to believe. So, that's why I'm probably one of the only members of my family that's proudly not a Democrat. Definitely not a Republican either. But my political party, it doesn't seem like exists in America. So I have nobody to vote for. But I appreciate y'all's time. You know what I mean? Like I said, don't just judge a book by its label. You know what I mean? Open it up, read a couple of pages, you know, look through the chapters, then gain some understanding. You know what I mean? And Republicans, obviously, this applies to y'all too, but I'm just speaking from the left-wing perspective. Yeah. So that's all I got for y'all today. This is Shane G. This is Politics as Usual right here on the Ethos Media Network. Make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe for all the latest content. Help us get to 600. We're on our way. You know what I mean? We're like 10 or 11 off. So help us get there, man. Help us get over that hump. And then we're going to keep climbing. You know what I'm saying? Shane G, Ethos. We out.